Access your free language gifts of the month right now. Here's what you're getting this month. First, the Making a Phone Call cheat sheet. Want to be able to talk on the phone in your target language? Then this conversation cheat sheet will help you do just that. You'll learn all the basic phrases, questions, and answers you'll need when making a call. Second, want to know the learning hacks, motivational tips, and success strategies for learning a language in 2020? Then you'll want this exclusive 52-page ebook. Download it now for free before we take it down. Third, words and phrases for the dentist. Learn how to schedule a checkup, talk about a toothache, and much more with this 1-minute vocab lesson. Fourth, can you talk about your zodiac sign? Then this next 1-minute lesson is for you if you want to learn. You'll learn how to say the 12 signs in your target language. Fifth, the 32 words you'll need for language learning. Noun, verb, adjective, sentence, grammar. Can you say these in your target language? If not, you'll want this quick 1-minute lesson. Sixth, free audiobooks for our members only. Unlock our huge library of language learning audiobooks. Save them to your device and listen and learn. They're yours to keep forever. And finally, the deal of the month. If you want to finally master the language with lessons by real teachers and our complete language learning program, take the 12-month challenge and get 12 months of Premium or Premium Plus at up to 45% off. So, to get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. First question this week comes from Anurag Pratap Singh. Hi, Anurag. Anurag says, hey, Alicia, this is Anurag from India. Hello. Could you please tell me the use of these types of marks? Question mark, exclamation point, and so on, used in combination together. Could you give some examples? Take care. Yeah, these combinations of question marks and exclamation points are used in very casual messages, like text messages or on social media, or maybe in very casual emails. So we use these together, like a question mark and an exclamation point together, when we want to express surprise and shock and a question all at the same time. So some mixture of those feelings. So some examples of when you might use this could be, you forgot my wedding rings on my wedding day? Or, you crashed my car? So in those kinds of situations, you want to communicate like shock or really strong anger, and you want to ask a question. So in those cases, we combine our exclamation point with a question mark. So it doesn't matter if you use exclamation point, question mark, or the reverse. You can choose the order that you like. Some people also choose, for example, to use like exclamation, 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 question. Or maybe they do question, 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 exclamation. That's up to you. So they do that for emphasis. They feel, I want to emphasize the question part more, or I want to emphasize the shock or surprise more. So that's up to you. But just keep in mind that this is very casual. This is not something that's officially recognized in style guides. It's not something that you typically see in like a professionally edited book or in a magazine. It's used in very casual situations. But this is very common, so if you want to communicate a question and some kind of shock or surprise or other extreme feeling, you can use these two marks together. So I hope that that helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move along to your next question. Next question comes from Peter. Hi, Peter. Peter says, hi, I have 2 questions. Okay. First, what's the difference between replace with and replace by? For example, 1. People replace computers by phones. 2. People replace computers with phones. 3. Computers are being replaced by or with phones. Okay, let's stop here. Let's start with your first question then. We use replace with when we're talking about getting a substitute for something that is old, for something that is broken, for something that just requires an upgrade. I replaced my old iPhone with a new iPhone. Or we replaced our TV with a projector screen. So in each of those example situations, something old or maybe something that needed an upgrade got replaced with something new. So we use replaced with or to replace with in these cases when something is like old or broken. We use replace by when something is filling the role of another thing. So this is commonly used when people change their jobs or they change their position in some way in society. So when we use a pattern like person A was replaced by person B, it means person A went away and person B took person A's place. The president was replaced by the vice president after the scandal. Company managers have been replaced by robots. So in both of these example sentences, we see one person or a group of people being replaced by something else. So that means this something else is taking the position or is taking the role of the person or people mentioned at the beginning of the sentence. So this is the difference with replace with or replace by. Your final example sentence was kind of interesting. It was computers are being replaced by or with phones. So it kind of depends on the nuance that you want to give here. I personally would use computers are being replaced by phones because I feel that that kind of communicates that the role of the computer can be done by a phone now. So maybe like a very old computer can do the same things that a new phone can do. So we could suggest that a phone can do those things. A phone can be in the role of an old computer. So I think I would probably use by in this case. Computers can be replaced by phones, or computers are being replaced by phones, as in your example sentence. So thanks very much for that question. Let's go on to the second part of your question, which was, which is correct or is more natural? For example, people replace their computer by a phone. People replace their computers by phones. You should send an email through the Gmail app. You should send emails through the Gmail app. Okay, good question. And the answer really depends on the goal of your communication. In general, when you're trying to decide between using the singular and the plural form in cases like these, if you're speaking generally, use the plural form. So to go back to your example sentence, people are replacing computers with phones would be correct. Or send emails using the Gmail app. So using the sentence, send an email with the Gmail app would be okay if you are talking about one specific email case. Like, you need to email your client? Why don't you send an email with the Gmail app? Like, test it out, try it out one time. If you're talking about a company rule, though, send emails, meaning all of your emails, please send all of your emails with the Gmail app. So using the singular means one time. Using the plural form means generally speaking, send emails. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between using the plural and the singular form in these cases. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Muhammad Al-Daily. Hey, Muhammad. Muhammad says, transistors proved vital in creating the practical lasers. If I want to translate the verb proved here, would it be correct to understand it as meaning tested? Or are there other possibilities? Great question. Yeah, the verb to prove means to show evidence for something or to show evidence that something is true. So another way to say this part of the sentence, this transistors proved vital, would be transistors were shown to be vital. Or like, we learned that transistors were vital. So vital means very important, and transistors refers to a part of a machine. So that's not so important for understanding the focus of this question, the verb prove. So prove doesn't really mean test, no, to answer your question. Although it is used in test situations. So in testing situations, or like in experiment situations, or when you're trying something new, you need to test things, and ultimately, in the end, you want to prove something, to show evidence for something. So if you're doing an experiment, you want to explain the results of your experiment. So what did you learn? You can use the verb prove in cases like these. For example, the new software proved useful for our project. our new lessons proved popular among students. So in these sentences, proved means was shown to be or were shown to be. So in the first example sentence, the new software proved useful for our project means the new software was shown to be useful, or we learned that the new software was useful for our project. In the second example sentence about classes proving popular among students, prove there, again, means shown to be. So our new classes were shown to be popular among students, or we learned that our new classes were popular among students. So this is what prove is used to do. Keep in mind, though, that this use of prove tends to sound a little bit more formal. We don't use this so much in everyday speech. You may hear it from time to time, but using prove in this way makes your speech sound a little more business-like. So I hope that this helps you with your understanding of the verb prove. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Daniel. Hello again, Daniel. Daniel says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between to get yourself killed and to kill yourself? Oh man, this is a great question. It's a little bit on the dark side. Let's start with get yourself killed. To get yourself killed refers to dying because you put yourself in a situation with a high risk of death. So the death comes from outside you. Something else kills you in this situation. Another person, or maybe a natural disaster. Something from outside you kills you. That's very bad. So to get yourself killed means you put yourself in a situation where there was a high risk of death occurring. Some examples. Don't take the boat out in this storm. You're going to get yourself killed. Or if you're a character in an action movie, don't go alone. You'll get yourself killed. So in this situation, get yourself killed means something from outside your body is going to kill you. In the first example situation, it's a storm, and the advice is don't take the boat out in the storm, you'll get yourself killed. Meaning the bad weather may cause you to die. It's a high-risk situation. In the second example sentence from something like an action movie, don't go alone, you'll get yourself killed, means if you go by yourself, there's a high risk of death. You may die. So let's compare this then to the expression kill oneself, or in your example, to kill yourself. To kill yourself means to take your own life. So that means to use something in order to end your own life. So this is a very dark expression, yes. This is commonly referred to as suicide. So this verb is used reflexively, or rather this expression is used reflexively. This means that the subject and the object of the verb are the same. For example, he kills himself. So he is the subject and himself is the object. Kill is the verb. That means he is causing himself to die. So this verb is reflexively used here. This is kind of a dark one to make some example sentences about, but let's take a look at a couple. If you're having thoughts about killing yourself, please reach out for help. And he killed himself due to high stress in his life. So, in sum, this is the difference between to get yourself killed and to kill yourself. To get yourself killed refers to being in a situation that has a high risk of death, and to kill oneself refers to taking one's own life. So I hope that this helps you understand this. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Anurag. Hi again, Anurag. Oh, I have two questions from you in this one. Okay, Anurag says, hi Alicia, could you please tell me the difference between supposed to and supposed to and their pronunciation while speaking? Do we have to use the ed sound while saying supposed to in sentences? Yeah, good question. And the difference between suppose to and supposed to is that supposed to does not exist. We don't say I'm supposed to. We always say supposed to. So the pronunciation here, maybe the issue here, is that supposed, which ends with a D, is connecting to the t sound in to. So supposed to, slowly, but in fast speech, we connect the T and the D sounds together to make supposed to. I'm supposed to go to the store today. I'm supposed to go to the bank later. I'm supposed to meet with my friend. So it doesn't sound like supposed to. We do not make those sounds clearly and distinctly. We connect them, actually. So when you are speaking as well, you can do the same thing. Supposed to, supposed to. So don't worry about saying supposed to. We don't say that. Use supposed to, supposed to. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. First question this week comes from Ahmad Junaidi. Hi Ahmad. Ahmad says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between afraid and scared? I'm a little confused. Thank you. Okay, sure. If you are talking about fear, afraid and scared mean the same thing when you're using them as adjectives. So I'm afraid and I'm scared mean the same thing. We're talking about our emotions. We're talking about fear. In different situations, however, these words can be used in different ways. Let's talk about scare first. Scare can be used as a verb. To scare someone or to scare something means to cause someone to feel fear. For example, you scared me, or you scared the cat. So that means you caused fear in someone else. Past tense, it's scared, as used in these examples. We cannot use afraid in this way. Afraid, however, can be used in a way that scared cannot. Afraid can be used in very formal situations, like business situations, as an apology. For example, I'm afraid I don't have time to meet with you today. Or, I'm afraid we don't have that item right now. So this afraid doesn't mean I'm scared. It means I'm very sorry, but. So I'm very sorry, but we don't have that item in stock right now. Or I'm very sorry, but I don't have time to meet with you. So I'm afraid is like a short, polite way to say that. So these are the differences between afraid and scared. I hope that this helps you. Thanks very much for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Bruno Moria. Hello, Bruno. Bruno says, hi, Alicia. Can you tell me the difference between the words commitment and compromise, please? Okay, sure. Think about commitment as a promise or as an agreement. So a commitment is something you agree to with another person or with a group of people. As a verb, we say commit, to commit to something. So a commitment is something you agree upon with other people. Some examples. I made a commitment to do my best in this job. He's afraid of commitment. So the second example sentence is actually a common kind of complaint in romantic relationships. He's afraid of commitment, or she's afraid of commitment. You may hear it in situations other than romantic relationships, but it generally refers to someone who is afraid to enter into a kind of agreement, like a romantic agreement, to date or to be in a relationship with one person for a long time. So that's the nuance of the second example there. More generally, however, commitment usually refers to agreements, and they can be in business situations. Let's compare this now to compromise. So a compromise is a situation in which two sides have different proposals for something, and they each make changes to those proposals to arrive at this middle point. This middle point is called a compromise. So as a noun, this point is called a compromise. So side A and side B have different ideas. They change their ideas slightly, and find an agreement. So that agreeing point is the compromise point. As a verb, it's to compromise. So let's look at some example sentences with compromise. Our team members reached a compromise after discussing the project. My friends wanted to go bowling, but I wanted to play video games, so we compromised and went to an arcade. So in the second example sentence, I've used compromise as a verb in the past tense. We compromised. That means each side changed the plan just a little bit and we found this middle solution. So in sum, commitment is an agreement. A compromise you can think of as like a type of agreement in which both sides change their ideas slightly. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Paterne. Hello, Paterne. Paterne says, hi, Alicia. What is the difference between supposed to and meant to In terms of meaning, nothing. Supposed to and meant to have the same meaning. The only difference here is that meant to is used in British English and we don't use meant to in American English. For example, I'm supposed to go to a company event this weekend, and I'm meant to go to a company event this weekend. An American English speaker would use the first example sentence, I'm supposed to go to an event this weekend. A British English speaker would use the second sentence, I'm meant to go to a company event this weekend. For me, as an American English speaker, the second example sentence feels a bit unnatural to say. It's not something that we use in American English. But these two sentences communicate the same idea. So, if you are studying American English, great, I recommend using supposed to. If you're studying British English, great, use meant to. It'll sound more natural. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ruben. Hi again, Ruben. Ruben says, hi Alicia, is there any difference between loose and lose? I'm also confused with the words uninterested and disinterested. I think they have the same meaning, but I'm not sure. Yes, great question. There are key differences. Let's start by talking about loose and lose. Loose, with two O's, is the opposite of tight. So for example, my ring is loose, or wow, my pants are loose. So this means the opposite of tight. Something tight is like under pressure, or it's kind of, you can imagine it in like this shape, something that is tight. Something that is loose is not that. There's not so much pressure. It's easy to move, it's flexible. So loose is an adjective. Lose, on the other hand, is a verb, which means to no longer have ownership of something or to not win something, as in sports. So, for example, I lost my cat in the forest, or I think we're going to lose the basketball game today. So lose and loose may seem to have similar pronunciations and similar spellings, but they do have very different meanings. Also, different parts of speech. Lose is a verb and loose is an adjective. So keep these in mind and be careful of your spellings when using these words. Let's move on now to your second point about the difference between uninterested and disinterested. In many cases today, we use uninterested and disinterested to mean the same thing, which is having no interest in something. Like we just don't care, we don't have positive feelings or negative feelings, it's just there, we're very neutral. So many people use these two words to mean the same thing. However, disinterested can have a couple of other meanings. One of these is unbiased. So, for example, politicians should make disinterested decisions. So that means politicians should make decisions without bias. So bias means having an opinion in one way or another about something. So a disinterested decision means an unbiased decision. We can use disinterested in this way. We can also use disinterested to mean no longer interested in something. So something you at one time were interested in, but you are no longer interested in, can be described as something you are now disinterested in. For example, I've become disinterested in my hobbies. Compare this then to a couple of example sentences that use uninterested. I told my friend about a concert I went to last week, but he was uninterested. We're so tired of having uninterested people at our events. So please keep in mind, as I said, many people use uninterested and disinterested to mean the same thing when the meaning is about not having any emotions or not having any attention focused on something. If, however, you want to talk about losing interest in something or about not being biased with regard to something, use disinterested. So I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Cecilia. Hi, Cecilia. Cecilia says, hi, Alicia. I found that sometimes there is a comma before and sometimes not. When should I add a comma before and? Thanks. Okay, yes, you should add a comma before and when you are joining two independent clauses. An independent clause is an idea or a phrase that can stand alone, so it doesn't need any extra information. It's a complete idea, a complete thought. Let's take a look at a few examples that show different types of clauses together. On Saturday, I'm going to the mountains, and on Sunday, I'm going to the beach. I told my mother I loved her cooking, and I told my father I love his music. I'm tired and hungry. I missed my train and forgot my wallet. So the first two example sentences here use a comma before and. This is because if we remove the comma and, the two ideas can be separated with a period, and there's no communication problem. The statements remain the same. On Saturday, I'm going to the mountains. On Sunday, I'm going to the beach. There's no error there. The second example sentence is similar. I told my mother I love her cooking. I told my dad I love his music. If we remove the comma and, the sentences are okay because they are called independent clauses. They are complete ideas. They don't need any more information. In the last two example sentences, though, we cannot remove and because the parts that it joins are not independent. So, I'm tired and hungry. If we remove and, it becomes I'm tired, hungry. In the last example sentence, I missed my train and forgot my wallet. I missed my train, forgot my wallet. That's not a grammatical sentence. So this is a good way to test whether your and is connecting independent ideas or not. Try removing it from the sentence. If the sentence remains grammatical, perhaps you have an independent clause and you can use the comma and there. This is one way to use a comma before an and. The other case where you may see a comma before an and is in the last item in a list. For example, I bought bread, fruit, and milk. I saw my family, friends, and neighbors. So before the final item in each of these lists, there's an and there's a comma before the and. This is what's known as the serial comma or the Oxford comma. So some people choose to use this type of comma and some people choose not to. There are some good reasons, I feel, for using the Oxford comma, and I'm a person who believes that this is a good comma to use because it can help prevent confusion when you're reading. For example, I need to buy bread, fruits and vegetables, and a meat and cheese plate. There are many ands in that sentence. There are 3 ands in that sentence, and using commas to separate each individual item helps the reader understand what they should be looking for. What is one item here? A comma helps us identify those things. In another example, we might say, this weekend I'm excited to see my friends, Beyoncé and Justin Timberlake. So a way to interpret this sentence without an Oxford comma is that Beyoncé and Justin Timberlake are my friends, but they're not actually my friends. The Oxford comma helps prevent this kind of confusion. This weekend, I'm excited to see my friends, Beyoncé, and Justin Timberlake. So it sounds like those are 3 different things that are not necessarily related. So the Oxford comma helps prevent this kind of confusion. For that reason, I'm a big fan of it. The cases where you might see the Oxford comma purposely not used are in journalism, really. So in newspapers, in magazines, for example, those publications and the style guides that they follow typically do not advocate or do not suggest the use of the Oxford comma. You will see the Oxford comma, however, in novels and in short stories and other things like that. So in those cases, you may see it used. This is another reason why you may sometimes see a comma before an and you may sometimes not see it. There are a couple of different reasons. So in sum, one reason is related to independent clauses and connecting those with a conjunction, and in this case, and a comma. The other is related perhaps to the use of the Oxford comma or the serial comma. So I hope that this helps you. To Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Amr Ibrahim. Hi, Amr. Amr says, what is the difference between to and into? Great question. Yeah, generally we use into when we're talking about movement from one place inside of another place. To is used generally to talk about moving from point A to point B. So let's take a look at a few examples first. Let's jump into the pool. He walked into the store. We drove into the car wash. So in each of these example sentences, there's an object or a person moving inside of a location. So they're going from outside a location to inside of a location. We use into to show that the movement is happening and to show that that object or that person is being enclosed in something else. Let's compare this then to the same sentences with to instead of into. For example, let's jump to the pool. He walked to the store. We drove to the car wash. These sentences are all grammatically correct, but they don't show movement from something outside a place or outside of a situation inside something else. Actually, these sentences express the method by which we travel. So in the first sentence, let's jump to the pool, it means like let's travel by jumping to the pool, like to the area next to the pool, for example. In the second example sentence, he walked to the store. It means he traveled to the store by walking. In the third example sentence, we drove to the car wash. It means the speakers used a car to travel to the car wash. So into actually means going inside something. To means like the method by which we travel to a location. So this is a key point of difference. You'll notice that just changing the preposition in these example sentences totally changes the meaning of the sentence. So please try to keep this in mind when you're choosing between into and to. Into is used to talk about moving inside of something else, and to is used to talk about like the actual part where you're moving to a location. So you're moving from point A to point B, not necessarily being enclosed in something. So this is a quick and general rough guide for the difference between these two. I hope that it helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Alexi K. Hi, Alexi. Alexi says, hi, Alicia. I can't understand the difference between be used to and get used to, especially in the past tense, because there's no continuous tense in Russian. Can you give me some advice and a couple of examples? Yeah, nice question. And it does depend a little bit on the sentence, especially for be used to. So just a reminder, we can use be used to or be used to. They have the same spelling in different ways. So we use be used to talk about something's purpose. For example, this printer is used to print models. And we also use used to or used to, depending on the sentence, to talk about things we are accustomed to doing. So as in the example, like I'm used to having a busy schedule. So please keep in mind that although the spellings are the same, the meanings are different depending on the sentence. I want to focus on the second type that I introduced here, this I'm used to having a busy schedule. So as a refresher, we use this kind of pattern when we want to talk about something we're accustomed to doing. I'm used to having a busy schedule in present tense. Past tense and future tense, however, we tend to use get used to, get used to. So for example, I got used to having a busy schedule, or I'll get used to having a busy schedule. We can also use it in present perfect tense, as in, I've gotten used to having a busy schedule. You could use it with the progressive tense too. I'm getting used to having a busy schedule. So what's the difference here with all of these sorts of things? We don't use that present tense, I am used to or I am not used to, unless we want to talk about the current situation, something that's true now or something that's not true now with the negative. For example, I'm used to making Q&A videos, or I'm not used to making Q&A videos. Those refer to something that is true now. We use get used to talk about things in the past or in the future, or which are currently in progress, as with the progressive form. I'm getting used to having a busy schedule. That means I'm in the process of being accustomed to having a busy schedule. Let's look a little bit more at the other forms I talked about. I got used to. I got used to having a busy schedule means I'm now accustomed to it. That part is finished. That's okay for me. In future tense, I will get used to having a busy schedule, or I'll get used to having a busy schedule. It means I'm not used to it now, I'm not accustomed now, but in the future, I will be. So it will become okay is what it means. In the perfect tense, I've gotten used to having a busy schedule means over time I have gradually become accustomed to having a busy schedule. So in sum, when you want to talk about something that's true now, use the be used to structure or not used to structure as I talked about before. If you want to talk about the past or about the future, or if you want to talk about something that started in the past and affects the present, you can use the get used to pattern. These sound a little bit more natural. So I hope that this helps you. It's maybe a lot of information, but it's a small point that I think will help you to sound a little more fluent with this pattern. So thanks very much for the question. All right, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Ivan. Hi, Ivan. Ivan says, hi, Alicia. What's the difference between past simple and present perfect? For example, I lost my keys versus I've lost my keys. Or I bought a new car versus I've bought a new car. Thanks. Okay, yeah, nice question. Basically, when we use simple past tense, we're talking about an action that started and finished in the past. When we use simple past tense, it's like we're reporting information. So, I lost my keys, or I bought a new car, or I sold my house. So, it's like a fact, a quick fact, a simple report. It's done. When we want to communicate that some past action has an effect on the present, we can use the present perfect tense. So for example, I've lost my keys, or I've bought a new house, or I've sold my car. So what could the effect be there? In the first example, I've lost my keys. It's like at some point in the past, I don't know when, but at some point in the past, I lost my keys. Now I cannot find my keys. I still cannot find my keys. So this is the effect. The negative effect on me right now is like I can't use my car, or maybe I can't go home. Like I have to find my keys. So there's some effect from this past situation, losing your keys. In the other examples, which were like I've bought a house or I've sold my car, maybe the effects are like you have a lot of money, or you have to move to a new house, or now you have a new car that you can use to drive around. So when we use the present perfect tense here, we want to communicate that there's some kind of effect from this past action. When we're using simple past tense, it's like we're giving a quick report. Something is done, or we don't feel it's so important to talk about an effect. We just want to give this information. I lost my keys. So it's a little bit quicker, yes, and it's also just kind of like more direct. We don't think about the effects so much of that action. So that's a really quick guide to maybe why we would choose to use present perfect tense as opposed to simple past tense. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Sergey. Hi, Sergey. Sergey says, hi, Alicia. What is the difference between consist of and include? In what situations can I use these words? Yeah, you can think of consist of to mean is made of. When we use consist of, it's like a more formal way of saying something is made of something else. For example, this cake consists of flour, eggs, butter, and sugar. Or today's tour consists of a bus ride, lunch, and a guided walk around the Eiffel Tower. So in each of these cases, we're talking about all of the things that make up the subject of the sentence. So in these cases, the subjects were the cake and the tour for the day. So consists of means is made of. This thing is made of these various parts. Include, on the other hand, is used when we want to highlight something that's especially important. So we don't list everything inside something. It's like we're choosing maybe some category, or we're choosing some important feature of something. So we might say the ingredients for this cake include eggs and butter. So maybe we need to include that for allergy reasons. Or like, today's tour includes lunch. So maybe there's some key information we want to include. We want to share that there for some reason. So consists of is like made of. We talk about all of the things used to make something. Includes is used to highlight something or to share a feature of something. It does not necessarily mean that's everything. Like today's tour includes lunch doesn't mean the tour is only lunch. It means that inside today's tour there is also lunch. So this is the difference between consists of and includes. I hope that this helps you. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Pedro Henrique. Hi, Pedro. Pedro says, what does the expression have a blast mean? Oh, have a blast means to have fun. It means to enjoy yourself, to have a great time. It's a very casual, friendly phrase that you can use with your friends or with your family. We tend to use it for things we expect are going to be super, super exciting, like going to an amusement park or seeing a concert or traveling to another country. So you can use it in present tense, you can use it in past tense, whatever. If you go to a concert and you want to tell your friend about it, you can say, I had a blast, or the concert was a blast. If you want to wish your friend an exciting time, you can say, have a blast before they go. Or if you want to talk about a future plan, your friend is traveling somewhere, you can say, oh wow, you're gonna have a blast on your trip to Europe. So to have a blast means to have a great time. I hope that this helps you. Now, let's take a look at some conversational phrases.
Listen to the dialogue. What do you do? I'm an artist. Listen to it again. What do you do? I'm an artist. First of all, you need to learn how to say, what do you do? What do you do? Listen to it again. What do you do? What do you do? Now, how do you answer this question? This is the pattern you'll need. I'm an, your occupation. I'm an, your occupation. For example, I'm an artist. I'm an artist. I'm an artist. Here are a few more professions you can use with the same pattern. Police officer. Police officer. Police officer. Teacher. 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 Doctor. 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 Engineer. 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 Now, listen to some examples. What do you do? I'm a teacher. What do you do? I'm a doctor. What do you do? I am an engineer. Okay, now it's your turn. Do you remember how to say, what do you do? What do you do? Imagine you're a doctor. Do you remember how to say, doctor? Doctor. Doctor. Say, I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. Now answer the question saying that you are a doctor. What do you do? I'm a doctor. Now, imagine you're a teacher. Do you remember how to say teacher? Teacher. Teacher. Say, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. Now, answer the question saying that you are a teacher. What do you do? I'm a teacher. Now, imagine you're an engineer. Do you remember how to say engineer? Engineer. Engineer. Say, I'm an engineer. I am an engineer. Now, answer the question saying that you are an engineer. What do you do? I am an engineer.
Well done! In this lesson, you learn new occupation-related vocabulary and phrases you can use in your everyday life. You are now able to talk about your job like a native speaker. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to give an introduction to English tenses. For this lesson, I'm going to give a short introduction to when to use each of the English tenses. I'm also going to share an example of what that tense looks like in a sentence or in a question. So this is just a quick guide. If you want more information about any of these tenses, you can try searching the YouTube channel or our website for a video specifically about one of these tenses. So I hope this is helpful for you. Okay, so let's get started. The first group of tenses I want to look at is the present tense. So for today's lesson, I've organized it into three categories: present, past, and future tenses. So let's begin with the present tense. So in each category, I have four different tenses. I have simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. You might know continuous as progressive. They mean the same thing. Continuous and progressive mean the same thing for this lesson. So let's begin with the present simple tense. Present simple tense is a tense we use for general facts, for regular actions, and for schedules. So this is stuff that doesn't change. Like he speaks English, for example. She doesn't speak Spanish. That's a simple fact. For regular actions, so things you do every day or every week, for example. And schedules, so that means like a bus or an airplane or maybe a car schedule, something that maintains a regular schedule. An example, two examples of using the present simple tense. First, I work on Mondays. So here, work is my verb. I work on Mondays. Simple present tense. A negative, I don't eat lunch at 2 o'clock. So these are simple present tense statements. In this case, they're just simple statements of fact, really. Okay, so let's continue to the next one. The second tense is the present continuous tense. The present continuous tense. So present continuous tense we use for continuing actions, and that means actions that are happening now. So for example, I'm teaching, I'm standing, I'm speaking. Those are actions happening now. So we use it for continuing actions now, like physical actions. We also use it for trends, so things happening in your society right now, for example. So examples would be like, that TV show is becoming popular, or the world is getting warmer, for example. So these are things happening now also. We can use it for one-time actions as well, and this relates a little bit to future tense, which I'm going to talk about later too. But something happening just one time in the future, we can use the continuous form to describe that. So for example, I'm working this Saturday. So sometimes students ask, what's the difference? Why is it I'm working this Saturday and not I work this Saturday? Remember, we talked about the present simple tense. We use that for regular actions, for general facts. So if you usually work on Saturdays, you should use the present simple tense. I work on Saturdays. If, however, this Saturday is special and you don't usually work on Saturdays, you should use the continuous tense. I'm working this Saturday. So it sounds like that's not a typical thing for you. I'm working this Saturday. Okay, Let's go on to the third tense. The third tense is the present perfect tense, the present perfect tense. So we use the present perfect tense for general life experience or lack thereof. So lack thereof means no life experience, not having a life experience. So something that you did in the past, but not at a specific point in time. The specific point in time is not so important here, or maybe we don't know. So example. A negative example, he has never been to Spain. He has never been to Spain. In this case, no life experience of going to Spain is what this means. So this is an example of present perfect tense. Here we have he has. Remember, we need to attach has or have before our past participle verb form here. So for more information about this tense, you can check the channel. There's more information there. So let's continue on to the next tense now. The next tense is the present perfect continuous tense. Present perfect continuous. We use this tense for actions that started in the past and continue to the present. So something you started doing in the past, some point in the past, it's not always important when, but that action continues. So you use this a lot to talk about your studies, for example. We use words like for and since and maybe ago with this as well. So an example of this, I've been studying English for 2 years. So here we see I've been. This I've is the contracted, the reduced form of I have. I have been studying. So this is the continuous or the progressive form. In this case, I've used the word for. I've used for because I'm using 2 years, which is a length of time. We can use since. For example, I've been studying English since 2016. So we use since before a specific point in time. We can use ago as well. Usually we pair it with since. I've been studying English since 2 years ago. You'll notice when we use ago, however, we change from using, in my first example, 2016 to a length of time, since 2 years ago. So there are a few different changes you need to make there. But you can check the other video on the channel for more information about that grammar point. Okay, let's move on to the second group for today, which is the past tense. Let's look at the 4 points in the past tense here. First one is the past simple, or just simple past tense. Simple past tense is used for actions that started and finished in the past. So for example, I taught simple present tense earlier. So I used past tense. I taught simple present tense because the action started and finished in the past. Another example, I worked all night. I worked all night. So work is my verb. I use simple past tense worked because the action started and finished in the past. Another example, a negative, they didn't come. They didn't come to the party. They didn't come to the office. The action was in the past. It refers to something that did not happen in the past. So there was no action in the past, but it's over, it's finished. So we use simple past tense to talk about these simple actions that started and finished in the past. Okay, let's go on to the past continuous tense then. Past continuous is for actions that were continuing in the past. So this one is one we often use with a specific point in time along with it. So let's look at an example first. We were listening to music. We were listening to music yesterday, or we were listening to music at 8 p.m. When were you listening to music? When was that action continuing? At 8 p.m. or yesterday. So it's common to include a point in time with this grammar point. Another example, like I was doing something, something, ing form there. So this is one that's some people have questions about, like why should I use that? When should I use that? It's typically used in response to someone's question, like what were you doing last night, for example, or what were you doing this morning? So you want to know someone's activities at a specific point in time. You can use this grammar point to respond to that question. Okay, let's move along to the past perfect tense, our next one. Past perfect tense is for actions that were completed or not completed at a non-specific point in the past, at a non-specific point in the past. So this one is kind of difficult, and it's perhaps not used quite so much in everyday conversation. This is used a bit more in writing. This is a grammar point that's especially helpful when we want to show kind of a timeline in our writing. To show that an action happened before another action in the past, we can use the past perfect tense. So here's a couple of examples. First one. They hadn't departed yet. So here, hadn't is the reduced form of had not. They hadn't departed yet. And I had taken my lunch break. So we would use sentences like these if we're telling a story. So we're telling a story about the past, and we want to show that one action happened before another action. When we want to talk about the earlier action, so the thing that happened earlier, like more in the past, we use the past perfect tense. Then we can use the simple past tense to explain the action that happened closer to the present. So for example, I had taken my lunch break when I saw the delivery man came, or something like that. So you can see my second point there. That's kind of a strange example, but you see that my second point there uses the simple past tense. I saw the delivery man came. So I had taken my lunch break further in the past when I saw the delivery man came. So that's simple past tense. So this is probably more common in writing, but it is used in speaking as well too. So this is what we use past perfect tense to do. Okay, let's move on then to another challenging point, past perfect continuous tense. Past perfect continuous. These are sentences or questions for actions that started in the past and continued to like an unspecified point in the past. So the action has finished as well. That's a key difference with the present perfect continuous. With present perfect continuous, the action is happening now still. That behavior still continues. Key point though with past perfect continuous is that the action started at some point in the past and then continued and finished as well, but at some unspecified point. So maybe we don't know exactly when the action finished, but it's done, it's complete. So let's look at an example. They had been waiting since 3 p.m. So here, they had been waiting. This shows us that there was some waiting period. So the waiting started at 3 p.m. and the waiting continued and continued and continued. We don't know when the waiting finished, but this grammar point shows us that the waiting has finished. We're finished waiting. That's done. We wanted to talk only about this period of time the people were waiting in the past. So this is the grammar point that we use to talk about things that were happening over a period of time in the past and then finished. So this is something, again, we use when telling stories. We're showing a sequence of events, actually. Okay, let's move along then to the last group for today's lesson, the future tense. Future tense. Let's start with the future simple tense. Future simple tense. This is for actions that are planned or unplanned for the future. There are actually a lot of different things we can do to make the future simple tense. Some very common ways of making future simple are through using will and won't, and going to and not going to. And earlier in this lesson, I mentioned using the continuous tense, the present continuous tense, the ing form of a verb, to make statements about the future also. So there are many ways to make simple future statements. Let's look at a couple of examples. First, I'll have a glass of wine. This uses will, I'll. I'll is the reduced form of I will have a glass of wine. That's a future statement. Also, he's going to cook dinner. In this one, I've used going to express that. So these are just simple things about planned or perhaps unplanned. Like he's not going to cook dinner would be an unplanned action in the future, or something that's not going to happen in the future, rather. Okay, so let's go on to the future continuous tense now. Future continuous tense, this is for actions you think will or will not be continuing in the future. Something you think will be continuously happening in the future. Let's look at an example. I'm not going to be working at company A. I'm not going to be working at company A. So here you can see we have going to. I'm not going to. Plus, we have a verb in the continuous tense. I'm not going to be working at company A. Meaning, in other words, I'm not going to have a job at company A, or I'm not going to continue my position at company A in the future. That's my thought now in the present about the future. So at that time in the future, like in 1 year, for example, I will not be working at that company, or I'm not going to be working at company A. So that's the idea behind the future continuous tense. Okay, let's move along to the future perfect tense then. So future perfect tense refers to actions that you think will have started some point in the future. So remember, you're thinking in the present right now. But this grammar point is used to talk about something you imagine in the future that starts at some point and you think might be continuing into the future, maybe. Something started and maybe continues. This is the idea here. So let's look at an example. I will have lived in China for 2 years. I will have lived in China. So here I'm using will to show it's a future tense statement, I will, plus have lived. This is the same thing that we use for the present perfect tense that we talked about earlier, that past participle plus have or has, but we're attaching it to a future tense will. I will have lived in China for 2 years. So when would we use this? So if, for example, someone asks you a question about your future and they say like, so where do you see yourself in like 2020, for example? Or where do you imagine you're going to live in 2020, for example? You can say, oh, I will have lived in China for 2 years. So meaning at that time, in 2020, I will have lived in China for 2 years. So that means not now, but in the future. At that point in time in the future, I will have started living in China, and that will have continued for 2 years. So that's what that means. That's a guess about the future, future time period, that something will have continued in the future. So again, quite a challenging grammar point, but something definitely to look into. So again, not used perhaps as much as the present perfect tense, but great for storytelling and for imagining your future too. Okay, so let's move on to the last point for today's lesson, the future perfect continuous tense. Future perfect continuous. This is a tense that you use similar to the last one, but for actions you think will or won't have started and will be continuing. So something that's going to have started again in the future, something started, and the action will have continued into the future. Example. I won't have been eating meat for 3 months. I won't have been eating meat for 3 months. So for this one, let's imagine that you decided last month to stop eating meat. So that's fine, actually. For this sentence, that's okay. You made a decision last month to stop eating meat. Then someone asks you about your progress, like how's it going? Like what are you going to do next month? And you can say to yourself, well, at that point, next month, by next month in the future, you can use this sentence. I won't, so won't, negative will not, I won't have been eating meat for 3 months. For 3 months. So that means from the point in time I started it in the past until this point in the future. So not present, but into the future. This entire time, my behavior not eating meat, that's going to have continued. So you're making a guess about the future. So at this future point in time, that behavior I started in the past will have continued and continued and continued. And at this point, it will be 3 months total for that behavior. So we use this to talk about something, some future thing that will have continued or will be continuing into the future. So will have continued, meaning something that started in the past and continues into the future, or will be continuing, meaning it's still going into the future as well. So there are a couple of very, very subtle grammar points to consider there too. So those are a couple of maybe tough grammar points, but they're really good for storytelling and for talking about your future as well. Okay, so I know that this was a lot of information in this lesson. If you have some questions about where to find more details about any of these grammar points, you can check the YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has some resources for these grammar points. There's also some information on the website. If you don't see it on the website or on the YouTube channel yet, please have a little bit of patience. We are making new stuff all the time, and we'll hopefully have this available for you soon. So please keep checking back in. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about some common idioms. These are common American English idioms. For your reference, an idiom is a set expression that doesn't mean exactly what the words in the expression means. It actually has a special meaning. These are set phrases with special meaning. So today I'm going to introduce a few. Let's get started. Okay, the first expression, the first idiom, is the expression I feel under the weather. I feel under the weather. This means I don't feel well. I don't feel well. So you use this when you feel sick, like I'm feeling under the weather today, or he's feeling under the weather today. You can also change this verb to look. If you want to make a guess about the way someone else feels, you can say, you look under the weather. Like in this example sentence, you're looking a bit under the weather. A bit means a little. And here, you're looking means like it seems that right now, your appearance now suggests that you don't feel well. But this is a friendly and casual expression you can use to say, are you okay? You look a little sick. So feel under the weather. To feel under the weather or to look under the weather, if you're just guessing based on someone's appearance, means that you don't feel well or someone seems like they might be sick. Okay, let's move on to the next idiom. The next idiom is, I've put in parentheses here, I'm so hungry, but we drop this part sometimes. I could eat a horse. I could eat a horse. So here you see could, suggesting possibility. This part we often drop, so sometimes we just say I could eat a horse, or maybe a different large animal, like I could eat an elephant, for example. Basically, this idiom means I'm very hungry, that's all. So in other words, I'm so hungry, it's possible for me to eat a large animal, an animal as large as a horse or as an elephant or something. We don't really change the animal so much. You could say elephant, I suppose, but typically people say horse. This is a little bit of an old-fashioned expression. Now you might just hear, I'm starving, but that's kind of an extreme, I'm really, really hungry expression. But if you use this, it's okay, people will understand. It means you're very, very hungry. Okay, let's move on to the third idiom for this lesson. This one is, it's raining cats and dogs. It's raining cats and dogs. This one also is a little bit old-fashioned, but you might still hear it used from time to time. It's raining cats and dogs just means it's raining heavily. It's raining a lot. There's a lot of water coming down. So it's raining cats and dogs. This does not mean there are cats and dogs in the street or coming down. It just means heavy rain, heavy rain. Okay, let's go on to another one that's a little more commonly used. This expression, this idiom is that, or it, or these, those, whatever, that costs an arm and a leg. An arm and a leg, physically body parts, an arm and a leg. That costs an arm and a leg. This expression means that's very expensive. We use this for something that is extremely expensive, or perhaps more expensive than we expected. So an example of this would be, my new phone cost me an arm and a leg. My new phone cost me an arm and a leg. So I paid a lot of money for my new phone. Here, cost is actually in past tense, cost. Here, it's in present tense, that costs an arm and a leg. Here, this is the past tense expression, my new phone cost me an arm and a leg, means I paid a lot of money for my new phone. So An arm and a leg, these are key parts of our body. So we use them in this expression to show that something was really, really expensive. We had to give a lot of ourselves, a lot of our resources to pay for this item. So something costs an arm and a leg means something is really expensive. We always use arm and leg. We don't use arm or leg only. We use them together always for this expression. Okay. Let's go along to the next one. Also uses leg. This expression, this idiom, is to pull someone's chain or to pull someone's leg. You also hear the verb yank used here. So pull is this motion. Yank is like a quick, short pull. So to yank something. But to pull is a little more like smooth. But to pull someone's chain or to yank someone's chain or leg, these expressions all mean to be joking. It means you're just telling a joke. You're kidding. Kidding is a word that means joking. So when you're joking with someone, like in a conversation, and you want to show, I don't mean anything by it. I'm just joking. You can say, I'm just pulling your leg. Like if you're telling a story, if you're lying to someone for a joke, you can use this expression. So here, sorry, I'm just pulling your leg. Sorry, I'm just pulling your leg. Sorry, I'm just yanking your chain. This means I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. Don't be serious. Don't take what I'm saying seriously. It's a joke, in other words. So sometimes people like to use this to like finish a conversation if the other person is getting angry. And then they can say, I'm just joking. I'm just pulling your leg. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next idiom is to hit the road. To hit the road. This does not mean physically hit the road outside. This means to leave, to leave. This is a casual expression which means to leave your current position and go somewhere else, to hit the road. In an example, it's late. Let's hit the road. So in other words, it's late, let's go. Let's leave this place. Okay. Onward to the next expression. The next idiom is kill two birds with one stone. So a stone is a rock, a small rock. Two birds with one stone. This expression means to accomplish two things with one action. So one thing, you do one thing, but you accomplish two things. Of course, you could do multiple things, I suppose. 3 birds with one stone, maybe. But we tend to use it 2 birds, 1 stone. An example. Met friends and checked out a new restaurant. I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I wanted to see my friends and I wanted to visit a new restaurant. I did them both at the same time. I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I accomplished 2 things in one action there. This is quite a common expression. 2 birds, 1 stone. It's always that pairing. Okay, onward to the next one. The next idiom is piece of cake. Piece of cake, like that's a piece of cake, or it's a piece of cake, or that was a piece of cake. It means very easy. Piece of cake means easy. Also, be careful of your spelling. This should mean piece, like one part of something. It's not P-E-A-C-E, peace, like peace on earth, peace around the world, but piece of cake, part of cake. It means very easy. This is an expression that means very easy. An example, making coffee is a piece of cake. So some activity, some action is easy to do. We say piece of cake. So actually, we don't always clearly state the action or the activity that's easy. Sometimes we get like a request, like, can you make this or can you do that? And the response is just piece of cake, no problem. I can do that, that's easy for me. So quite a common one too. Okay, let's go along to the next idiom, which is put all your eggs in one basket. To put all your eggs in one basket. This is an idiom that's usually used for advice, and we usually say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. This means to rely on only one thing for your needs, to rely on one thing. So let's look at an example of this. Don't invest in just one company. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So the image here is that we need eggs in this example. We need eggs to eat for something, for breakfast, let's say. If we put all of the eggs we need in one basket, and we drop the basket, or the basket is stolen, or there's some other problem, the eggs are destroyed or they disappear or whatever, we have nothing, we have no resources. So this is a life advice idiom that suggests if you have some resources, you should spread them to different places. So don't put everything that you have in one location. If something happens, then you're in trouble. So it means spread out your resources, spread out the things that you need in case something happens. So here too, don't invest in just one company, try to spread your investments out is what this really means. So this is quite a common expression. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, let's go on to the last one. The last one is a special idiom. It is hair of the dog that bit you. I have this in parentheses because we often drop this part. Hair of the dog that bit you. This is an idiom that we use particularly the day after we've had alcohol. So hair of the dog, this is a suggestion for a hangover cure. So hangover means that sick, bad feeling you have after drinking too much alcohol. So we feel like a headache. We have a stomach ache, we're slow, it's difficult to do things. That's a hangover. So hair of the dog that bit you. So we're suggesting here that alcohol is a dog. That's what there's kind of a small story here. Alcohol is a dog, and the dog bit you. So because the alcohol harmed you, damaged you, you feel sick. So the idea here is if you take, like medicine kind of, if you take part of the dog, a hair from the dog that bit you, you'll be cured. It's like a treatment kind of, or a suggestion for treatment. So example, hangover, how about a little hair of the dog? In other words, this means if you drink a little bit of alcohol, then maybe you will feel better. It's suggesting not to drink a lot, but have a little bit of alcohol and then your body will be better. It will improve. I don't know if it's true or not, maybe for some people, but that's what this expression means, hair of the dog, and we often drop that bit you there. So how about some hair of the dog that bit you? That could work. All right, 10 words for using computers and email. To save. The first word is to save, to save a file, to save a document. To save means to keep something. Like you save the file, you keep it on your computer to use or open later or to send later. So to save the file is to keep it, to hold it on your computer. In a sentence, did you save the file? To undo. The next word is to undo. To undo, this is a verb. So here we have undo. So un means to remove or to take away or to not. So it's a negative prefix. Do is to do something, like to take action. So to undo can be used in many different programs. So it means to remove the last thing you did, to take back, to go a step back in your activities in your document. So you can undo changes. You can undo, I don't know, something in Photoshop. You can undo. Also, you can undo, for example, like jewelry, to undo a clasp. Clasp is the little piece that holds jewelry together. So to undo it is to remove it, to take it off. You can use undo for computers also. In a sentence, I have to undo these changes. To edit. The next word is to edit. To edit means to fix or to change, to revise something, to make something different than it was before. So to edit something means to make changes to something. So there's usually an edit menu in like a Microsoft Word or iTunes or something like that. Many menus have an edit subsection. So you can edit. Within the edit section, there are many different things that you can change or settings that you can change, for example. You can also use edit outside of computers, for example, to edit a document or to maybe edit information in your phone. I don't know. But yeah, you can use edit to mean change something or to update or revise something. In a sentence, he edited the file last night. To rename a file. The next expression is to rename a file, to rename. So here we have rename as our primary verb. The main verb is rename. Name means to call something, to name a file, to give a name to something. Re means again. So to rename a file means to give a file a different name, a new name. So in a sentence, I renamed all the files in the folder. To restart a computer. The next expression is to restart a computer, to restart a computer. So you turn off the computer one time and it automatically turns back on. So that's called restarting, to restart a computer. Again, we see this re prefix, re again and start, restart a computer. In a sentence, I need to restart my computer. To attach a file. Okay. The next expression, very useful for email, is to attach a file. To attach a file means to attach a file to an email, really, or to a message. So usually there's like a paperclip icon, or you can just attach, I don't know. You connect a file to a message. We say that's attaching. Making an attachment is the noun form, an attachment. In a sentence, the file is attached to this email. To send a file. The next word is to send a file, to send a file, or to send an email as well. So to send something, as you would use the same verb for mail, like to send a package or to send a letter, we use to send a file too. So in a sentence, I sent you a file with all the information yesterday. To receive. The next word is to receive. To receive means to get. So someone sends a file, you receive the file. You get the information someone has sent you. That's to receive. In a sentence, did you receive my email about the project? To shut down a computer. The next expression is to shut down a computer. To shut down a computer. Usually computers say shut down means turn off. To turn off or to cut power. So to stop using the computer. The computer is off. We say shut down a computer. In a sentence, I shut down my computer every day. To unplug. Finally, a word that some students have trouble with, it's kind of strange, to unplug, to unplug. So here we have, again, as we talked about with undo, meaning remove or not, and plug. So to remove plug means to take the plug. I don't have one handy, that's okay. So headphones, these are huge. So headphones, when they're plugged in, we say to plug in. We can use this for any kind of power using device, anything. When you're finished with it, however, we just say to unplug that thing. So we say, but we don't say plug. We don't say to plug. I need to plug my blah, blah, blah. We say, like, we use plug, that plug we use for marketing words. Like, I'm here to plug my book. I'm here to plug my new movie. So when you remove, it's to unplug, like to unplug my headphones, to unplug my computer. But when you put it in, it's to plug in something. We do not say plug out. Isn't this a weird word? Like a weird pair? And be careful. So like to plug in, those are two separate words. Well, in the infinitive form, plug plus in. But be careful. A plugin as a noun is a different thing. Like on like a WordPress template or like in a software that you use, plugin is all one word. There's no space between plug and in. That's the noun form. Plug in, however, is the verb form. All kinds of bonus words here. So let's use an example sentence. Unplug your devices when you are finished with work. We're going to unplug this camera after this is done. So those are 10 words that you can use for talking about computers and email. If there's another word that you're not sure about, or if you have any questions or comments, please be sure to let us know in the comment section below this video. Let's talk about the basic definition of the verb bite. It means to use your teeth to cut or tear something. Examples. I hate it when I bite my tongue. You shouldn't bite your nails. Let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, bite. bites. Past, bit. Past participle, bit. Progressive, biting. Let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first one is one that we use when we go fishing, which means for fish to eat bait. We use the verb bite for this. Examples. The fish aren't biting today. I think something bit my lure. So bite refers to fish eating bait. So bait meaning edible things, or lure, as in the second example sentence, kind of a shiny metal or plastic object that attracts fish. It looks like food, but there are hooks in it. So we use bite to talk about the fish trying to eat that thing, or actually swallowing that thing. So the reason I introduced that, we'll talk about with the second additional meaning for this verb. So this leads into the second additional meaning for this verb. The second additional meaning for this verb is to show interest in something. To show interest in something. Examples. All right, I'll bite. What's the secret? The new clients didn't bite on the deal. So here, bite means show interest. So the reason that I introduced this as the second meaning after the fish bait eating introduction is because we can imagine that when we're showing our interest in something, it's similar to the way fish bite a lure or fish try to bite food. So when we're interested in some information, like a secret, as in the first example, or a special deal, as in the second example, we want to bite it. We want to get that thing. So this means to show interest, yes, but it means we're kind of going after. We're trying to chase that thing so we can get it and enjoy it, perhaps. So to bite can mean to show interest in something. The third additional meaning for this verb is to be bad or to be unappealing. Examples. This lunch bites. Your boss bites. So here we're using bites. In the first example, your lunch bites. It doesn't mean your lunch, like a sandwich, physically bites you. It means your lunch is not very good. Your lunch is bad. Your lunch is unappealing. In the second example, your boss bites. It doesn't mean your boss is a person who bites people. It means your boss is bad. Your boss is not a good person. Your boss is not a good boss, for example. This is a slang term that means not good, unappealing. Ugh. However, the fourth additional meaning for this verb is to have a habit of biting. So someone or something that has a habit of biting things, we can use the verb bite to talk about that. Examples. Watch out for that dog, he bites. Careful, I heard that kid bites. Generally, this use of the verb bite is used for animals and for kids. So in other words, creatures or small people who have not yet learned or don't know that it's wrong to bite someone. So this is not used for adults. So you probably won't confuse this meaning with meaning number 3, like your boss bites, because your boss as an adult has learned not to bite people. So this is probably only going to be used with animals and maybe kids. So people or creatures who don't know. Let's move along to some variations of this verb. The first one is to come back to bite somebody. To come back to bite somebody. This refers to a problem that, if not handled now, could cause a bigger problem in the future. Examples. I didn't put gas in the car yesterday. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. She didn't stay updated on the project progress, and it came back to bite her. So these examples refer to a problem that's not properly handled at the right time. In the first example sentence, a person did not put gas in his or her car yesterday. So the idea is that perhaps they're going to run out of gas in the future. They should have put gas in the car yesterday, but they did not. They should have, and it might cause a bigger problem in the future. In the second example sentence, it's a past tense situation. A person, the she in the situation, did not stay updated on the project progress, and thus there was a negative effect in the future because she did not properly handle the situation. So for something to come back and bite you means you didn't take care at the present time, and in the future, it caused a bigger problem. So be careful of this one. Let's go on to the second variation, which is to bite someone's head off. This is quite a strange expression, but to bite someone's head off means usually to quickly and angrily say something, and it can often be for something very, very small. Not necessarily for a huge problem, but maybe just a quick show of anger, sometimes over a small point. Examples. My mom bit my head off for coming home 10 minutes late last night. He made one small mistake. You don't have to bite his head off. So, of course, this doesn't literally mean biting someone's head off of their body, but it just means making a really quick and angry comment or series of comments to somebody because of something small, usually. In the first example sentence, it's a 10-minute delay. So one person is 10 minutes late getting home, and the speaker's mother bit his or her head off, meaning was very angry at them for a short period of time for that mistake. In the second example sentence, he made one small mistake, you don't have to bite his head off. That means that you don't need to be so angry at this person for a small mistake. So to bite someone's head off is a quick show of anger, refers to that. The third variation is to bite the bullet. To bite the bullet refers to doing something that you don't want to do, but maybe you're forced to do it, or it's really not appealing, you don't want to do it, but you decide you have to, or there's some other reason that you're pushed to do it. You bite the bullet and do it. So, examples. I think I have to bite the bullet and take the boring day job. We bit the bullet and applied for a mortgage. So these are maybe examples of things the speakers don't want to do, but they decide they need to do for some reason, or they're forced to do for some reason. So those are a few new ways, I hope, that you can use the verb bite. There are quite a few interesting meanings to this verb, for sure. Of course, if you know a different meaning, if you want to try to make an example sentence, or if you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section of this video. The basic definition of the verb rise is to move upwards. Some examples. The balloon rose in the air. The sun rises every morning. Okay, now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, rise, rises. Past, rose. Past participle, risen. Progressive, rising. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first one means to become successful or to achieve a higher position. Some examples. The group rose to power in 2016. Our channel has risen in popularity over the years. So these example sentences both refer to kind of improving your rank or improving your level of success, becoming more successful. In the first one, we see the group rose to power. Rose to power means became gradually more successful, like gradually gained more power. Rose to power, like kind of leveled up, you can imagine. In the second example sentence, our channel has risen in popularity. We see that we're becoming more and more successful, more and more popular over the years. So this refers to gradually gaining some kind of success or achieving a higher rank in some way. Okay, let's go on to the second additional meaning for this verb. The second variation is to increase, Some examples. Temperatures are rising around the world. Our electrical bill seems to rise every year. So this just refers to a simple increase. Perhaps the easiest way to think of this is numbers going up. So in the first example sentence, temperatures increasing. Temperatures are increasing around the world means temperatures are going up. Temperatures are rising. In the second example sentence, it's an electrical bill. So the cost goes up every year. The cost rises every year. So we use rise to refer to simple increases as well. Okay, let's go on to the third additional meaning for this one. The third additional meaning for this verb is to oppose a bad ruler. So this can mean like a king or a queen or a government or someone who is like in a managerial or administrative role, someone who's ruling over other people or controlling other people. Examples. The people rose up against the government. His troops began to rise up against him. So here you can see rise up against. And then we follow that with the person or the ruler or the government that's causing the problems for the people who are opposing. So in the first example sentence, the people are rising up against a government. In the second example sentence, troops, members of the military, are rising up against someone who is in control of them. So we commonly see rise against or rise up against in this case. Let's continue on to some variations of this verb. The first variation is to rise above. This means to not allow something to affect you negatively. So examples of this. He's trying to rise above all the drama at the office. They rose above the ignorance in the community. So rise above refers to not letting some kind of negativity affect you. In the first example sentence, he's trying to rise above the drama in the office means he's trying not to let drama in the office affect him negatively. In the second example situation, it's a community situation. They rose above the ignorance in the community. So perhaps there is ignorance in the community that could potentially create a negative situation, but they decide not to let that affect them. So they try to go beyond it. This has a positive image, actually, rising above something that could create a negative situation. Okay, let's go on to the next one. The next expression is to rise from the dead or to rise from the grave. This means coming back to life after being dead, or we can use it to talk about someone who wakes up after a long, long sleep in a very casual situation. Examples. Zombies are humans risen from the dead. Whoa, look who's risen from the dead. So in the first example sentence, it's a fantasy situation about zombies. So zombies are kind of humans, like monsters. Humans that died and now they are back. They're sort of risen from the dead. They're back and walking around. So risen from the dead. In the second example sentence, it's about a person who probably just woke up. Whoa, look who's risen from the dead. Look who has risen from the dead. Meaning, not literally you died and then came back, but instead you've been sleeping for a long time, so long it seemed like you died, but now you're back. You're risen from the dead. So we can use this in most cases to talk about like zombie movies or people who sleep for a long time. Though perhaps there are other situations too, especially in some religious situations as well, where we can use this expression. Okay, so those are hopefully a few new ways that you can use the verb rise. Of course, if you have any questions, comments, or other ways that you want to try to use rise, please feel free to do so in the comment section. Most people don't like to hear this, but consistent hard work is one of the biggest factors in your language learning success. The course or method you choose makes a difference too, but at the end of the day, you ride or die by the work you put in. The quantity of time spent studying language doesn't necessarily determine the quality of your study. Spending 3 hours a day watching movies doesn't help you learn much if you're not actively engaging with the language. In this video, we'll talk about 3 ways to actively engage your mind while studying a new language. Number 1, think of your brain as a muscle. You're probably familiar with the phrase, feel the burn, or maybe no pain, no gain. If you've been to your local gym recently, there's a chance you might have heard one of these phrases or seen them plastered on a wall. There's an idea in the world of sports and workouts that the discomfort you feel when running, pumping iron, or doing some other physical activity is what brings results. During a healthy workout, the muscles of the body are affected at a microscopic level. The discomfort you feel is your muscles being pushed to their limit. It's the limit pushing that strengthens your muscles so that over time, your performance increases. In the context of language learning, it's helpful to think of your brain as a muscle. Just as we need to push our physical limits when exercising, we also need to push our mental limits when learning a foreign language. Have you ever studied or practiced your target language in a way that left you tired or even exhausted? If so, you've experienced what it's like to push your brain out of its linguistic comfort zone. Number 2, practice active listening. One of the easiest ways to push your language skills is to practice active listening. Active listening is when you listen to someone speaking your target language and you do your best to understand what you hear. The best way to accomplish this is by using audio that you can't completely understand on the first listen. Preferably, you want to use audio that has subtitles or transcripts for you to double-check your understanding after you listen to it. You can use movies, YouTube clips, or even our language program, which has very useful transcripts for each lesson. During a practice session, you should listen to the audio several times. The first time around, it's okay if little to no words stick out to you. Simply make a mental note of any words or sounds you recognize. The second time you listen, you're likely to recognize a little more than you did the previous time. Expect similar results with your third or even fourth time listening. After you've hit the ceiling of words you can decipher, go ahead and look at the language subtitles or transcripts. Listen to the audio again, reading along with the text. Odds are that you will see words in the text you know, but didn't hear correctly. You're also likely to encounter words that are new to you completely. As you play back the audio and read along, try to guess what these words mean from the context of the words around them. After you've read along a couple times, feel free to look up the remaining unfamiliar words in a dictionary or translator app. This active listening exercise routine is a great way to increase your listening and comprehension skills while picking up some new vocabulary along the way. It also allows you to learn new words in context, which itself is a powerful method to help you retain what you study. Number 3, practicing with native speakers. Practicing with native speakers is the epitome of pushing your language skills. Using what you know to communicate in real time is where the rubber really meets the road. Try to connect with a native speaker on a weekly basis. Regularity is what makes the difference when you're learning a foreign language. If you live in a large metropolitan area, then there's a significant chance that there are some local native speakers nearby. Try hitting up a local language exchange or meetup group to make the necessary connections. If you're unable to find a practice partner locally, then you can take your search online. There are a number of sites out there that help you find and connect with other language learners from around the world. There are tons of language learners around the world who have learned or are learning a second language. You're likely to find someone who knows your target language and is looking to improve their own language skills as well. Learning a new language isn't always easy, but it's the discomfort that comes with pushing your ability in the language that produces results in your studies. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. The further away you get from your native language, the closer you'll be to attaining fluency. Also remember that language learning is in every way a lot like an adventure. There will be fun times and times when it feels like you're swimming up the proverbial stream. It's by keeping your head up long enough through these ups and downs that you will experience the priceless satisfaction that comes from learning a foreign language. Just keep moving forward. Let's be honest, it's difficult to learn a new language. If you're new to a language, it's going to take consistent and concentrated effort to start using the language fluently. However, this fact shouldn't discourage you. While learning a new language is hard, it's far from impossible. In this video, we'll outline 5 tips you can use to jumpstart your language learning. Follow these pointers to learn your target language in a way that is efficient and effective. Number 1, limit your native language use when practicing. The idea here is that when you practice with native speakers, you do your best to refrain from using your native language. This is generally harder the less you know, but if you can manage to stick to this rule, you'll reap some huge rewards. If you commit to a no native language practice session, it's not going to be easy. Most likely, there will be some frustrating, if not painstakingly difficult moments where you either have trouble understanding the person you're talking to, or you can't say what you want to say. It's precisely in these moments that your language learning muscles are built up to capacity. The process really isn't all that different from working out in the gym. Just replace the physical burn of lifting weights for the mental burn of thinking in a new language. In the end, if there's no pain, there's no gain. Obviously, this no native language rule doesn't have to be written in stone. There are times when it's more beneficial to break out of the target language box and have something explained to you in your native language. However, this should definitely be the exception rather than the standard. Number 2, have set times to practice speaking throughout the week. Now that we've discussed a good way to practice speaking, let's delve a bit into when to speak. One of the best commitments you can keep while learning a new language is to set aside specific times to practice speaking the language on a weekly basis. Ideally, these speaking sessions are on set days at specific times and form part of your weekly routine. If you don't make it a point to set aside specific practice times, you run the risk of your language practice falling through the cracks of your busy schedule. I recommend writing down your practice times and hanging it somewhere you can always see it. You could also input the times into your phone and set an alarm. The point is to remind yourself of your commitment every day so that it doesn't fall by the wayside. Number 3, get picky about vocabulary. Whether you practice with a podcast, a friend at a coffee shop, or a teacher, you're going to run into a flood of new and unfamiliar vocabulary. Despite your best efforts, it's unlikely that you'll be able to pin down every new word or phrase you hear and study it later. Thus, you should pick and choose which new words you focus on. The defining quality of each new word you learn should be its practicality. The more useful a word or phrase is to you in a conversation, the more important it is that you learn it. Don't feel like you have to cram the entirety of your target language into 1 week of study. Take it one step at a time. A few practical words here, some more there. Before you know it, you'll see your vocabulary improve. Number 4, write and practice short monologues. This tip can be a lot of fun. Begin by selecting a topic you enjoy discussing. Then, simply write out a short monologue or speech on the subject in your target language. The first thing you'll notice while doing this will likely be the holes in your grammar and vocabulary. But when you try to write out your thoughts in a foreign language, you might inevitably hit roadblocks. You might not be able to think of a word or know how to formulate a specific idea or opinion yet. This can be great because these holes are the exact areas where you should focus your studies. You can bring up these problem areas in your next lesson or browse through your favorite language course or textbook in order to find the answer. The constant process of finding these language holes and filling them is what keeps you moving along the path to fluency. Once you finish your short text, it's a great idea to practice reciting it or even memorizing it. The memorization will help you internalize the new grammar and vocabulary you've learned. Reciting it will get your tongue and mouth used to the sounds. Number 5. Keep an up-to-date list on what you want to learn. Throughout your studies, you should always have a sort of language shopping list. As you practice and study, you will most likely come across things you'd like to be able to say, but don't know how to yet, especially if you follow our previous tip. Write this wish list down. It's one thing to learn the vocabulary you pick up via a course or podcast, both of which are great. It's a bit different when your vocabulary gets personal. Learn the words that matter to you, either because they're practical or because you simply find them interesting. The more relevant the vocabulary, the more likely you are to retain it. Some people might tell you it's impossible to learn a new language for whatever reason, but it's important to remember that the way you study and engage with a language greatly affects how quickly or effectively you learn it. Being able to speak freely with native speakers is an amazing ability in itself, but being able to speak freely to a whole new group of people opens you up to possible new relationships. Most people don't realize that spending the time to build relationships in a foreign language can actually help you improve your language skills dramatically. In this video, we look at how making relationships in a foreign language can help you learn the language faster. The benefits of having friends and partners who speak a foreign language. First, it's motivational. One of the greatest struggles for anyone learning a second language is motivation. 9 times out of 10, learners start out their language learning journey with loads of enthusiasm, only to see it gradually wane over time. Try as they may, it's difficult to maintain the spark they once shared with their new language. So why not borrow energy from a different part of your life? When you make relationships with people in your target language, all the excitement of a new relationship carries directly over into your learning. Suddenly, you have a very rewarding reason to improve your skills and keep practicing. As your partner or your friends get involved, you will also have the advantage of a constant source of support and encouragement. Second, it makes language learning practical. Studying vocabulary and grammar is a vital part of language learning, whether you use a podcast, textbook, app, or find yourself in a classroom. However, as great as studying is, a language really only starts to come alive once you start using it in everyday life. There's a huge difference between a scripted conversation in a lesson plan and a real-life conversation with a native speaker. Building relationships with native speakers will give you the chance to talk in your target language often. Furthermore, it will be in a way that feels natural. You'll learn the words in the context, which is hugely important. Third, it's fun. One of the greatest benefits is that it allows you to practice without having it feel like practice. Oftentimes, you'll find yourself so wrapped up in the conversation that you forget you're using a foreign language. This takes a lot of the pressure off and helps you focus on communication over trying to speak absolutely perfectly. You also get to learn about a whole new culture from your partner or friends, so you're not only learning language skills, but also about the cultures that surround your target language. The risks of having friends and partners who speak a foreign language. First, it's easy to miscommunicate. When it comes to relationships, humans can easily misunderstand each other. So it can be hard when building relationships in your target language when you or your partner's lack of ability in each other's respective native tongue can lead to miscommunications that would otherwise be avoidable. Depending on the language you're speaking, a simple mistranslation or mispronounced word can drastically change the meaning of a sentence. As long as you can afford each other some extra patience and the benefit of the doubt, then you should be able to overcome this pitfall. Second, your language skills could suffer if your relationships don't work out. If all your language practice is wrapped up in one person and your relationship with that person doesn't work out, then your language learning could take a big hit. So it's best not to put all your hopes for language growth on one area, relationship or otherwise. You don't want to risk losing motivation, so try to find it in many different areas. An idea for building relationships in a foreign language. Make games out of getting to know one another. Sometimes, opening up in any new friendship or partnership can be hard. Add in the added struggle of a new language, and it can feel impossible to share your true feelings with others. So instead of trying to take first interactions so seriously and talking about the usual things like the weather or work, try to ask new, interesting questions. Try to figure out what the other person's hobbies are without asking directly, or what kind of job they have. This will give you a chance to stretch your language skills in a new way, and you'll probably get some funny answers out of it too. Being comfortable being silly or making language mistakes is a great way to bond with someone, even if you've just met. Relationships in a foreign language have a lot more benefits to offer than drawbacks. Don't be scared to open up to people and make mistakes. Hey everyone, welcome to the Monthly Review, the monthly show on language learning. How to finally learn language in 2020, your New Year's resolution solution. Today you're going to learn 1. 3 reasons most goals fail, 2. The 3 rules for successful goal setting, and 3. We're going to set you up with your first language goal for 2020. So, if you've failed with your goals or New Year's resolutions before, then this lesson is for you. You'll be able to finally learn your target language, make measurable progress, and reach every goal you set. But first, listen up. Here are this month's new lessons and resources. First, the Making a Phone Call cheat sheet. Want to be able to talk on the phone in your target language? Then this conversation cheat sheet will help you do just that. You'll learn all the basic phrases, questions, and answers you'll need when making a phone call. Second, want to know the learning hacks, motivational tips, and success strategies for learning a language in 2020? Then you'll want this exclusive 52-page ebook. Download it now for free before we take it down. Third, words and phrases for the dentist. Learn how to schedule a checkup, talk about a toothache, and much more with this 1-minute vocab lesson. Fourth, can you talk about your zodiac sign? If not, then this next 1-minute lesson is for you. You'll learn how to say the 12 signs in your target language. Fifth, the 32 words you need for language learning. Noun, verb, adjective, sentence, grammar. Can you say these in your target language? If not, you'll want this quick 1-minute lesson. To get your free resources, click the link in the description below right now. They're yours to keep forever. Okay, let's jump into today's topic. How to finally learn language in 2020, your New Year's resolution solution. So, January is over, but let me ask you a question. Have you set a resolution for this year? If you haven't, it's understandable. Most people end up failing with their resolutions. You set one, you try to do it in January, and by February there's no progress. Doing it is no longer fun, or you get sidelined by something else. So you quit and put it off until next year, or whenever the guilt of quitting your goals comes back to haunt you. So, what's the problem with setting resolutions? Why do we keep failing? First of all, regardless of what most people say about New Year's resolutions, setting goals, whether on January 1st or any other time of the year, is a good thing. You have to know where you're going and what you want to achieve. Otherwise, you'll be floating around aimlessly from one language app to another and have nothing to show for your time spent. But the problem lies with the goals that people set. For example, most people set goals like, I want to master Chinese, or I want to lose weight, or I want to be fluent in Japanese. And based on these kinds of goals, here are 3 reasons why 90% of New Year's resolutions fail. First, resolutions fail because they are not specific and not measurable. Take a goal like, I want to master Chinese this year. The problem is that's a very vague goal. What do you mean by master? Do you want to speak about the economy, or do you just want to have everyday conversations? And can you really measure how much progress you need to master the language? The second reason is they are unrealistic. You might think, but isn't it good to set huge goals and aim for the stars? It's not bad, but if you say, I want to be fluent by September, is that realistic for you? Are you ready to commit yourself to nothing but language learning, 6 to 8 hours a day nonstop? The answer is no for most people. The third one is there's no action plan. The problem is you'll still fail even with a specific and realistic goal if you don't know when and how you're going to do it. For example, when will you study? How long will you study every day? And how will you study? So now you know why most people fail with their New Year's resolutions. Then how do we set New Year's resolutions and actually succeed? Here are the 3 rules for successful goal setting. Remember, your goals must be 1. Specific and measurable, 2. Realistic, and 3. They must have an action plan. Yes, the complete opposite of everything you heard earlier. For example, let's say you're learning Italian this year. Instead of saying, my goal is to learn Italian this year, set a specific, measurable, realistic goal for the month, like speak 3 minutes of conversation by February 28th. And you can also set a yearly goal, like 30 minutes of conversation, and work towards that. The whole point is, 3 minutes is measurable. You set a timer, time yourself, and know when you reach it. It's realistic. Instead of saying, I want to learn the whole language, you're just aiming for 3 minutes for the month, and maybe 30 minutes for the year. So ask yourself, do I have time to learn enough of the language to speak for 3 minutes? That will vary from learner to learner, but 3 minutes sounds much more realistic than I want to master a language. Finally, you still need an action plan for your goal. And for that, you need to answer these questions. When will you study? How long will you study every day? Where do you plan to study? How will you study? What is your study schedule? This is the most important part because this tells you when and how to study. If you don't answer these questions, you'll have no idea what to do and you'll quit because you have no routine to stick to. So for example, when will you study? I'll study at 9 p.m. on weekdays. How long will you study every day? I'll study for 20 minutes. Where do you plan to study? I'll study at home, in the living room, on my computer. How will you study? I'll listen to 1 audio lesson a day for 5 days. What is your study schedule? From Monday to Friday with audio lessons. I'll listen to the lesson, then go through the lesson notes for 20 minutes each day. Here are a few more things you can do to improve your chances of success. Reward yourself after hitting a goal. Studies have shown that giving yourself a reward after reaching a goal is crucial to creating lasting habits and continuing to conquer more goals. Write down your small, measurable goal and put it somewhere you'll see it often. Now that you know why New Year's resolutions fail and you know what to do differently, it's time to set your goal. So thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. See you next time. Bye! Great work. Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.